Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is an adult historical fiction that follows a fictional band from the 70s, and they and a lot of people involved with them are being interviewed about the story of that time period and their rise to stardom and what happened after that. So because of the nature of this being more of a rock and roll type story and the era that this is taking place in, there are trigger warnings in here for drug abuse, physical and emotional abuse by a romantic partner, and there is also a abortion discussion kind of scene. It is more of like a fade to black though. So this is a book that I decided to read on audio because a lot of people recommended it on audio, and I highly recommend that as well. The audiobook production is fantastic. It is a full cast, so this works really well for this because obviously this is a transcript of an interview that somebody is doing of all of the different bandmates, people involved on the side, friends with the bandmates, managers, things like that, and having all of the voices I found to be very entertaining. So I definitely recommend this as a fully casted audiobook. So first off, we talk a little bit about the world building. This kind of era of like historical fiction, this like rock and roll era, is not generally my jam because like I don't love the like sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing, but it was still able to have like a sense of grounding and humanity to it, which actually made it kind of interesting to me. So although I don't really care about like the music scene and stuff the way that some people might, I really enjoyed this and just how they were able to convey all of this through these different stories and snippets and things and background information and, you know, the rising of the charts. Just generally information about the music scene that I don't tend to care about, but was really interesting with how it was interacting with their lives. But mostly this is a character-driven story, so let me get into the characters. I was actually kind of surprised because when I went into this, I thought this was going to be way more about Daisy Jones. I didn't actually expect it to be a full cast like this and about all the characters because it is called Daisy Jones and the Six, and because I've also seen people like idolizing Daisy Jones, like in the sort of fandom community. Like I've seen people dress up like her and be like, I'm so much like her, I look like her, and there's like Twitter accounts for her, and I never saw that for any of the other characters. So I thought it was gonna be much more about Daisy, and it's really about this whole wide cast. And there are arguably two main sort of characters of like Daisy and Billy, who's one of the other like lead singers in this group, but really it's about all of them in a way. So with that, Daisy and Billy, who like I said are kind of like the two mains of the story, like sort of revolves around, again, it's not quite that they're the main characters because a lot of them get like a little bit of a focus, but they feel more of the main characters and a lot of the drama is happening with them and everything. It's interesting because they're the mains, but they're awful. And they're like intentionally awful. Like this is about two characters who are struggling with a lot of their own personal issues and trauma and baggage and things, and the ripple effect of these two really big personalities and how that affects everyone else is kind of the whole point of the story. So you're not really necessarily supposed to like them, they're not necessarily supposed to be likable characters, but I just found it really interesting that these two characters that I thought I would ultimately be pulling for, like I kind of wasn't, because they had lots of moments of like ruining everyone else's lives. So I really ended up liking a lot of the other bandmates way more and really wanting like more of their stories and what was happening behind the scenes. Like we would get little snippets of their like side stories and stuff, and I just was like very connected to a lot of them. What I also really enjoyed is that this style of story with the different narration and interviewing multiple people that were involved in the situation, we get this like unreliable narrator element to it because you have characters correcting each other because they're all being interviewed separately. So it's not like they're in this giant room all being interviewed at the same time and interrupting each other. But you'll have one character say like this is how a story went, and then you'll have another say that this is how the story went, not knowing that there's contradicting information because they're being interviewed separately. And I just found that element really interesting, and like which characters are saying things differently in their motivations because you're very much able to see like why they're sort of maybe fudging their side of the story and things, or even just funny things like this happened we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, this happened we were in Kentucky, and it's supposed to be the same story, and like just pointing out how humans are not perfect and their memories aren't perfect, and all of that like was just a really interesting element. With that being said, as far as the plot, this is ultimately about the like tragedy of relationships in a lot of ways, about characters that are all big personalities and what it takes to be in a creative group with people, and how something that can be really perfect and really great can also be really toxic. So it was really about these kind of like the tragedy of relationships and a lot of that. So this is like a sad story at times, but also an element of hope to it. If you've read other things by Taylor Jenkins Reid, like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it definitely feels similar to that, where it's like you see some of these like sad things happening, but there's also an element of hope to it. So I ended up enjoying this a lot, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I will be doing a spoilery discussion for this as well, because this almost feels like a story that you can like gossip about, right? Because it's like this fictional cast of characters, and I kind of feel like I want to share some of the things that I was feeling about their story with people that have read it, because I know it's very popular. So I will link my discussion on the screen if you want to check that out as well. So comment below, let me know what you thought of Daisy Jones and the Six. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.